I was 5, maybe 6 when it happened. That drops it square in the early childhood W category, where most memories get fuzzy, dulled by time. But not this one. This one's razor sharp, lodged in the front of my brain like a splinter that never healed right. We'd just moved to a new town, some small place with quiet streets and stores that all smelled like pine cleaner and something burnt. Even the air felt off, like it had a different weight. My mom was doing her best to keep things steady for me and my little brother, trying to recreate normal wherever she could. One of her tricks was taking us to the Willow Creek Public's library. It was just a few blocks from our house, this squat little red brick building with ivy climbing all over the sides like it was trying to hide from the world. Inside, it always smelled like old books and carpet shampoo. Mom loved it there, said it gave her peace. She'd take my brother, barely walking, still in diapers, into the adult section and let me loose in the children's area. I got to play on the computers while she read in peace. That day had started at the mall. I remember because she always treated us to those soft-serve cones from the McDonald's inside. Mine was vanilla, half melted and dripping down my wrist as we walked into the library. I can still feel the sticky cold on my fingers, how I tried licking the drips faster than they fell. Everything about that day felt painfully normal, until it didn't. The children's section sat tucked away in the back corner past rows and rows of towering wooden shelves, the kind that groaned a little when you ran your hand along them. The books all smelled like dust and printer ink. A few old computers sat along the far wall, chunky things with yellowing plastic and slow-loading games. I played for a while, probably a matching game or something with animals, but I got bored. I wanted to find an I Spy book. Those were my thing. I knew they were somewhere in the kids section, so I started wandering through the aisles, dragging my fingers along the spines as I went, just feeling the bumps of plastic covers, the worn cloth, the occasional peeling sticker. That's when I heard it. A soft sound behind me, like a whisper and a shuffle rolled into one. I froze, turned around. Nothing, just the back wall. Another tall shelf leaning against the old brick, holding nothing but books. I started to move again. Then, a face, half of one, peeking around the edge of the shelf. "Peekaboo," he said. I giggled. It felt like a game. Harmless. He disappeared again, then reappeared, same spot, peekaboo. I laughed harder, no fear, no suspicion. Just a kid playing with a grown-up who seemed funny. Then he stepped out fully. Tall. Too tall. Wearing a navy windbreaker and a gray beanie pulled low, almost to his eyebrows. His face was thin and tired looking. Patchy beard like he'd started shaving young and gave up halfway through. And his eyes, too wide, too still. "What are you looking for?" he asked, voice scratchy like he didn't use it much. "I Spy books," I said, clutching the last of my cone. "I think I know where they are," he said, nodding toward the back wall. "Come on." And just like that, I went. Followed him like he was a teacher or a friend or someone who was supposed to be there. We walked past the last row of shelves. He stopped at a lower one near the corner, and there they were, a whole row of I Spy books, right where he said they'd be. I pulled out my favorite, I Spy Treasure Hunt, the red one with the gold letters. "Let's go sit and play," he said, and my little hand followed his. I didn't think twice. He led me to a small table near the clunky kids' computers. I climbed into a chair on one side. He settled across from me, knees knocking under the too short table. We started flipping through I Spy Treasure Hunt together, his long, pale finger gliding over the glossy pages, pausing on treasure chests and hidden cats. "What's your name?" he asked casually, still scanning the pictures. "Liam." "That's a nice name," he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Thanks. How old are you?" 5 or 6. I don't know. 5's a good age, he said, nodding slowly. He kept flipping pages, his eyes flicking between the book and my face like he was measuring something. "Where do you go to school?" Told him about my teacher, how the desks were blue, how recess was my favorite. "Got any brothers or sisters?" "Yeah, my baby brother. He's still little." My mom's with him right now somewhere in the library. I said it casually, the way kids do when they're just talking. But that part about my mom not being close, seemed to catch his attention. You know. He leaned in a little, lowering his voice like he was sharing a secret. There's a special room in the basement, just for kids. Even more games down there. My eyes widened. Really? He nodded. You want to see it? I'd never been to the basement, but I'd seen the door in the back, with a faded sign that said meeting rooms. I'd always wondered what was behind it. Come on, he said, already standing. I hesitated. Something squirmed in my belly, just a tiny ripple of doubt, but then he smiled again, wide and reassuring, and I followed. The stairs groaned beneath us, narrow planks of old wood that bent under each step. It was dim, just a few flickering yellow lights hanging from the ceiling. When we hit the bottom, the air changed. Cooler, damp. The floor was bare, concrete, the walls lined with empty shelves that smelled like mildew and glue. At the end of the hall, a door waited. He opened it without knocking. Inside was a small playroom. Plastic toys were scattered on a stained rug. A little slide stood crooked in one corner. There was a table covered in Legos, a wooden rocking horse facing the wall. It looked normal, but something was wrong. I didn't know what. I just felt it. Come on, he said, stepping inside. I didn't move. Then, crackle the intercom. A soft hum, then a woman's voice filled the air, calm but firm. Will Liam please come to the front desk? Your mother is looking for you. My breath caught. I looked at him. His smile was gone. He stepped back slow toward the light switch. Another step. Then, click. Darkness. Let's play hide and seek, he whispered. I froze. My fingers went cold. My legs locked. I heard him move, fabric brushing, feet sliding on the floor. Run! The word came from somewhere deep inside me. I bolted, straight through the door, out into the hallway, behind me, shuffling, hurried breathing, the echo of footsteps chasing. Mine. The stairs loomed ahead. So far, so steep. If he caught me before I reached the top, before I reached light, I knew, he'd drag me back down. One step, two. Thump. His foot hit the floor behind me. I didn't look back. I dropped my ice cream cone, splattered cold on the stairs, and ran. Up and up, my heart pounding like a drum, legs pumping, lungs burning. I burst into the main floor, gasping. Light, warm and golden, wrapped around me like a shield. The librarian at the desk turned, startled, and there, right there, stood my mom. Her face shifted. Relief, then panic as she saw me. My red face, my tears, the look in my eyes. He... I pointed back toward the stairwell, my voice barely working. He was down there. Everything after that was a blur. A woman, library staff maybe, rushed to me, crouching low, her voice soft but clipped, asking careful questions I barely understood. Then came the police, blue uniforms, radios, crackling. They searched the library, every corner. He was gone. Slipped out another door, they said. I never saw him again. Mom held me so tightly I couldn't breathe, and I didn't care. I think I cried the whole ride home. I didn't ask her much after that. I didn't want to know more. Didn't need to. We never went back to that library, and to this day, if I close my eyes, I can still see him. Half his face, peeking around the bookshelf, smiling, saying, peekaboo. I never wanted to work in the library. Not because I hated books, hell, I loved reading, but sitting behind a desk for hours, scanning barcodes and reshelving dusty hardcovers, sounded like a slow death. But I needed the job. I was in my second year at college, majoring in English Lit, and money was tighter than a drum. My scholarship covered tuition and dorm, sure, but food, textbooks, and the occasional beer with friends, that was all on me. Jake, my roommate, worked at the student gym, said it was easy money, handing out towels and pretending to clean. But I'm not exactly the athletic towel-tossing type. The library was quieter, closer to the dorm, and best of all, I could sneak in study time during shifts. It made sense. Looking back, I should have known quiet doesn't always mean safe. I got hired the first week of the semester. Most shifts were uneventful. Students drifted in and out, hunched over laptops or whispering over group projects. By closing time, the place would thin out, and I'd do my rounds. Miss Caldwell, my supervisor, was all about rules. Check every aisle before locking up, she'd say, tapping her pen against the desk like a metronome. We don't want to lock someone in. I used to feel dumb calling out into empty rows of shelves. Library's closing. Time to head out. But after a while, it became routine. Then came that night, a Wednesday, my usual closing shift. I got there around 6, grabbed a tattered copy of Beloved off the returns cart, and settled in at the front desk. The place was quiet, just like always. A handful of students were scattered across tables, heads down, earbuds in, faces bathed in the glow of their screens. Then around 8 he walked in, not a student. Too old, late 40s, maybe 50. Wore this massive hoodie, hood down, revealing thin, wispy hair clinging to his scalp like overcooked spaghetti. No bag, no books, nothing in his hands, just there. What struck me was his eyes. They didn't do the usual sweep. Most people glance around, take in the space. He didn't. His gaze was flat, blank, like he wasn't really seeing anything. He didn't say a word, just walked past me and vanished into the stacks. I tried to shake it off. Maybe an alumnus, I told myself, or someone needing a quiet place to think. Could have been anything. But that feeling, that prickly skin-crawling wrongness, it stuck. By 9:45, everyone else had cleared out. Just me and him. I looked up from my book, glanced at the door. Hadn't seen him leave. Weird. I pulled up the grainy security feed on my desktop. Most of the cameras were crap, black and white, slightly laggy, but they did the job. I clicked through each angle, reading areas, computer lab, main aisles. Nothing. Then I found him. Camera 7, aisle 3. Standing perfectly still between two shelves. Not browsing, not moving, just standing there. My scalp tightened. It was like he'd been carved out of the air, wrong in the way statues are wrong when they blink. I grabbed the intercom mic and pressed the button. Attention, the library is now closing. Please make your way to the front exit. I let go and waited. Silence. Minutes passed. Still nothing. I sighed, stood up, and reached for the flashlight under the desk. I was going to have to find him. I stepped into the aisles, the carpet swallowing, the sound of my footsteps. Overhead, the fluorescent lights buzzed and flickered, casting long, twitching shadows across the bookshelves like something alive. "Sir," I called out, my voice low but steady. "We're closed. You'll need to head out now." Nothing. Just stillness. I kept walking, eyes scanning each row as I moved deeper into the stacks. I reached the aisle where I'd seen him on the security feed. Empty. I frowned. Then, footsteps. Light. Distant. Coming from just ahead. I turned the corner. Fast, heart ticking up a notch, just in time to catch a shape. Tall, thin, slip behind the next row. He was avoiding me. "Sir," I snapped, louder this time. "Library's closed. You can't be back here." No answer. I moved toward where the shadow had gone, slower now. Another step, then another. Turned another corner. Nothing. My annoyance shifted into something colder, coiling in my chest. This wasn't just someone who'd lost track of time. This felt deliberate, like a game, a sick one. Grinding my teeth, I pulled out my phone and shot a quick text to Jake. "Some weird guy won't leave. Keeps dodging me." WTF, I stared at the screen, waiting for the 3 dots. Nothing. The air felt heavier now, the kind of quiet that pushes in on your ears. Then I heard it. A soft creak. Not from the stacks. From behind me. From the front desk. My desk. I turned, slow as molasses. My breath caught halfway in my throat. He was there, standing behind the desk, watching me. His face was blank, too blank. No curiosity, no irritation, just nothing. Like the idea of expression didn't occur to him. My stomach flipped. I took a slow step back. "You need to leave," I said, doing everything I could to keep my voice level. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there like he was waiting for something. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away. No rush, no hesitation, just turned and went. The front door creaked open, swung shut behind him. I stood frozen for a moment, pulse thudding in my ears. Then I locked up, fast, keys fumbling in my shaking hands. My dorm was only 5 minutes, across campus. I just had to get there. Outside, the night air slapped my face, cold, damp. The quad was empty, not a soul in sight. I walked, fast, kept my eyes forward. Then I heard them, footsteps, behind me, soft, measured, echoing mine. I didn't want to turn around. I had to. I glanced back over my shoulder. It was him, 20 feet back, just walking. Still no expression, still no sound, just walking. I picked up my pace. So did he. My breath hitched, came faster now, puffing in little clouds. The dorm was ahead, so close. Then I heard it. His footsteps. Running, I bolted. Didn't think, just ran. Heart slamming, bag thumping against my side. The dorm was right there, 20 feet, 10. I slammed into the door, yanked it open, stumbled through. I turned, panting, eyes wide. He was gone. Sidewalk, empty. Just me and my hammering chest. I locked the door with trembling fingers and didn't sleep a second that night. I never saw him again. But after that, every night I walked home, I listened. Always listened for footsteps. I was 8 when it happened. Even now, my sister and I still bring it up sometimes, usually late at night, when the lights are low, and neither of us wants to admit we're still a little spooked by it. Funny how some memories won't let go, no matter how long it's been. We lived in a sleepy neighborhood back then. Real suburban peace, the kind of place where kids still rode their bikes until the streetlights blinked on, and neighbors waved from their porches with beers in hand. The library was less than a mile away, a straight 15-minute walk if you stuck to the sidewalk and turned left at the dead-end sign where Mrs. Kersey's roses always spilled through the fence. My sister Ava was 13, and in her mystery book phase, Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, anything with a flashlight on the cover. I was more into picture books, big pages, bright colors. That afternoon, she popped her head into my room, already tying her sneakers. "Want to go to the library?" she asked, casual, like she already knew I'd say yes. "Yeah, let me get my shoes," I said, hopping off the bed. Our parents didn't mind us going alone. The route was easy, and it was the kind of neighborhood where people looked out for each other. At least that's what we thought. The walk was ordinary. Sun overhead, heat rising off the sidewalk in soft waves. I remember how the pavement warmed, right through my sneakers like it was trying to slow us down. When we got there, the library's cool air wrapped around us. Ava peeled off to her usual aisle without a word. She knew where to go. I made a beeline for the children's section, the carpet soft and familiar under my sneakers. The place smelled like old paper and wood polish, the kind of scent that settles in your chest and makes you feel safe. I wandered the low shelves, trailing my fingers over the spines until I spotted one with a shiny dinosaur on the cover. I sat, down cross-legged on the floor, and cracked it open, ready to disappear for a while. That's when I noticed him. He was standing at the end of the aisle, maybe 10, with messy blonde hair and this strange look in his eyes. Not curious, not friendly. Just off. He walked straight over, no hesitation. "What book is that?" he asked, sharp and flat, like he was challenging me. I held it up. "Dinosaurs," I said, quiet. He squinted at it, then smirked. That book's for babies. You like baby books or something? I blinked, confused. No. You even know how to read? He asked, tilting his head like he meant it. I swallowed hard. Yeah, I can read. He snorted. Don't look like it. I didn't know this kid. Had never seen him before, but he talked like he'd been waiting to pick on me all day. My face went hot and I stared at the page, pretending I didn't care. Go away, I muttered. He shrugged, said something under his breath I couldn't catch, and walked off with a grin. I let out a shaky breath, hoping that was the end of. It wasn't. A few minutes later, just as I was turning a page, something smacked my back. I flinched, heart jumping, and turned around. A book lay behind me, face down on the carpet. Then another one hit me, this time in the shoulder. Laughter echoed from 2 aisles over. I looked up and saw him again, crouched by the shelves, grinning like it was a game. He picked up another book and chucked it. I reached out to block it, fumbled, and it hit me in the chest. Stop, I shouted, my voice cracking, but he just laughed louder. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to grab a book and hurl it right back at him, but he was bigger, probably stronger too. I knew I'd lose that fight before it started. Another part of me thought about finding an adult, but I hesitated. I didn't want to be that kid, the tattletale. So instead, I ran. I sprinted straight to the other side of the library, heart pounding in my ears. My sister was sitting cross-legged in the corner, deep in some mystery novel thick enough to double as a doorstop. The second I reached her, I felt that tight, anxious knot in my chest loosen just a bit. She looked up, instantly alert. What happened? She asked, already closing her book. There's this kid, I panted. He started throwing books at me. Her eyes narrowed. Where? I pointed over my shoulder, still catching my breath. Ava stood up without a word. That's how she was, never scared of anything, always ready to go full big sister mode if someone messed with me. We marched back to the children's section, but when we got there, nothing. The aisle was empty. No sign of the blonde-haired boy. My shoulders sagged, half relieved, half annoyed. I wanted her to see him, to know I hadn't imagined it. But I was also glad he was gone. No more books, flying at my head. Let's just grab our stuff and get out of here, Ava said. We picked our books and headed toward the front to check out. That's when the yelling started. At first it was muffled, then it got louder, angry, ugly. We rounded a corner and saw him, the same kid, standing red-faced and shouting at a librarian. He was practically vibrating with rage. I had no idea what set him off, but he was loud. Then out of nowhere, he stomped over to a nearby display and knocked the whole thing over. Books, pamphlets, even a plastic standee went flying. People froze. A few parents clutched their kids' hands tighter. Others just stared, unsure whether to step in or stay the hell out of it. That's when I saw him. A man, late 30s, maybe 40. Ball cap pulled low, faded t-shirt clinging to his frame like it hadn't seen a washing machine in a week. He was standing, a few feet away, yelling now too, at a different librarian. Loud, aggressive. My stomach dropped. That's his dad, I whispered. Ava followed my gaze. Her mouth tightened. The man's voice boomed through the library. Don't talk to my son like that. You people got no business. He didn't finish. Instead, he stormed across the floor, grabbed the boy by the arm hard enough to make the kid stumble and growled, "We're leaving." And just before they hit the door, the man spun around and shouted a curse loud enough to echo through the whole building. Then, gone. The room went dead silent. For a moment, no one moved. Then, a few librarians started picking up the mess, whispering to each other. Parents went back to their tables, heads down, like everyone had collectively decided to pretend it hadn't just happened. Ava and I stood there, stunned. Finally, she turned to me and muttered, "Well, that explains why he's such a little brat." I nodded. I didn't understand all of it, but enough. Enough to know some people carry their storms with them. We checked out our books and left. That was the last time I ever saw that kid. And honestly, good riddance. I never believed in ghosts. That's the first thing you need to know about me. I wasn't one of those people always chasing orbs in photographs or blaming cold drafts on spirits. Nah, I was practical, logical, the kind of guy who double checks the locks but doesn't flinch at creaking floorboards. But what happened at the library that night, it messed with my head in a way I still can't explain. I'd been working at the Clifton Public Library for just under a year. Not exactly thrilling work, but it was stable, and after what happened at my last job, well, let's just say I welcomed the quiet. The place had this old-world charm, all high wooden shelves that breathed dust and ink, with dim lights that barely reached the corners. The kind of place that always smelled like time itself. Peaceful mostly, and only 10 minutes from my flat. Ideal. Most days it was the usual crowd. Old guys with crumpled newspapers, a couple of local writers pounding away on their laptops, and the occasional oddball who'd wander the aisles like they were looking for buried treasure but never checked out a single book. I usually worked the evening shift, which meant I got to close up, lock the doors, kill the lights, make sure no one's hiding in the bathroom or passed out in a corner. Easy stuff. I'd done it 100 times. Then came Thursday. It was just before closing, around 8:50, when something felt off. I was doing my final walkthrough when I spotted a pile of books dumped in aisle 14. I groaned. "Come on," I muttered. "Lazy much? Kids did it all the time. Grab a bunch of books, get bored, and leave them wherever." I crouched down to gather them, but froze for a second. They were different. Not library books. These were old, like really old. Heavy, leather-bound tomes, with cracked spines and pages yellowed to the point of brittleness. They didn't have barcodes or labels, just this ancient musk, like they'd been buried underground. One caught my eye, bigger than the rest. Dark green cover, no title. It was ice cold in my hands, clammy, almost like it had just come out of a cellar. I traced the faded gold lettering along the spine. It wasn't English. Hell, it wasn't anything I recognized. Looked almost etched, like it hadn't been written so much as carved. I shook it off. "Probably some weirdo donation," I mumbled, shelving it. Not my problem. I finished the rounds, shut the lights, locked up, and caught the 9:10 bus home. Slept like a rock. Didn't think about the books again until the next night. Same shift, same routine. I was zoning out behind the desk, counting the minutes when thud, a dull, distant sound, like something heavy hitting the floor. I stiffened. "No," I whispered. "No way." I already knew. I walked down the rows, slow and quiet, heart thumping in my ears. Aisle 14. There they were. Same books. Same spot. My stomach dropped. I knew I'd shelved them. I remembered the feel of that green one, the way it chilled my skin. Just stood there staring, like if I looked long enough I'd find some logical reason. But deep down, something in me started to twitch. Some buried instinct saying, "You shouldn't be here. Why were they stacked so neatly?" That was the first thing that hit me. Not just dumped in a rush, no, they were carefully arranged, like someone had placed them with purpose. My spine prickled. Still, I forced myself to think rationally. Maybe a coworker moved them. Maybe a late patron. But the place was nearly empty, and something in me already knew. I wasn't going to find anyone. I knelt down, heart thudding, and picked up the stack again. This time I paid attention. There it was. That same green book. Back at the bottom. Like it had never left. I froze. That wasn't possible. I remembered shelving it. I remembered the weight, the way it sucked warmth from my skin. Curiosity and dread twisted in my gut as I opened it. The pages were thick, almost like parchment, covered in tight, jagged handwriting. Symbols, not letters, not Latin, not French, not anything. They weren't printed, They were scrawled in ink, like someone had bled them onto the page. Then I turned to one that stopped me cold, an illustration. The only one in the book. Black ink, sharp lines. A man standing in a dim aisle, just like ours. Bookshelves on either side, stretching high into the shadows. He faced away from the viewer, but something about him was wrong. His limbs hung, too long, like they didn't fit. His stance was stiff, unnatural. Then the details sank in. The shape of the shelves, the frayed carpet with the faded red pattern. And at the top of the page, aisle 14. My breath caught. My fingers went numb. This was here. I slammed the book, shut, dropping it like it had burned me. Backed up fast, too fast, nearly fell. My chest clenched. Air wouldn't come easy. Then I heard it. Footsteps, soft, deliberate. Not echoing from the main hall, inside aisle 14. I whipped around, heart jackhammering. No one was there, but I could feel it. Someone was standing just beyond the row of shelves, still, watching. My body screamed at me to run, but I moved forward. Anyway, each step dragged like my legs were made of stone. My pulse roared in my ears. I turned the corner, empty, just the green book, open again on the floor. I didn't touch it. I turned and walked out. Locked the door with shaking hands. Didn't look back, wouldn't look back. The next day I called in sick, couldn't even say why, just couldn't go in. But the day after that, I made myself return. Part of me had to know, had to prove it wasn't real. The library was quiet. Too quiet. Everything looked normal, ordinary, until I reached aisle 14. Nothing. No books on the floor, no strange sounds, no sense of wrongness. I almost laughed. Maybe I'd imagined it. Sleep deprivation, stress, too many horror podcasts before bed. Then, I saw it, or rather I didn't. The green book was gone. Not on the shelves. Not on the floor. Nowhere. I searched everywhere. Asked everyone. No one had seen it. No one remembered cataloging a book like that. No title. No barcode. No record. 2 weeks later, I quit. Walked out. Didn't say goodbye. Never went back. But sometimes, when I'm alone in my apartment late at night, I still hear it. The soft, unmistakable thud of a book falling to the floor. I was never the paranoid type. I traveled a lot for work, different cities every few weeks, airports, hotel lobbies, long hours in coffee shops with my earbuds in, knocking out emails or crunching reports. That was the rhythm. Predictable, normal, but after that trip, I can't sit in a public place for more than 5 minutes without scanning the room, clocking exits, checking reflections in windows. Something in me broke. It was maybe 3 years ago. I got assigned to a week-long contract, job in a city I'd never set foot in. The company booked me a place downtown, decent enough. Mid-tier hotel, clean lobby, ugly carpet, no weird smells. It did the job. After I checked in, I figured I'd get a feel for the neighborhood. Just a quick walk, you know? Stretch my legs, shake off the flight. That's when I saw it. The library. Massive place. Glass and steel facade, all sharp lines and open space, standing there like it didn't care about the history around it. The buildings nearby were all red brick and rusted fire escapes, but this thing looked like a spaceship landed in the middle of Main Street. I could see straight through the front, rows of books, these wide study tables, a little cafe tucked, off to the side near the entrance. It looked like the perfect spot to work. Better than being cooped up in a hotel room, that's for sure. Next morning, I woke early, grabbed some awful lobby coffee and a stale muffin, then made the 10-minute walk. The streets were alive by then, buses groaning past, folks in scrubs, and suits hustling to wherever they needed to be. I slipped through the library's front doors and instantly felt that hush. You know the kind I mean, that soft quiet, like the building itself is telling you to calm down. It smelled like old paper and fresh espresso. Keyboards tapping, chairs creaking, someone coughing down the hall. I went up to the second floor and found a table by the windows. Corner, spot, full view of the skyline. Isolated enough I wouldn't be bothered, but not so out of the way it felt weird. I settled in and got to work. Hours passed without me noticing. Sometime late morning, I stretched, decided I needed caffeine, and wandered down to the cafe. Took maybe 10 minutes, including the wait. When I came back up, coffee in hand, I saw him, a man, mid-30s, maybe older, standing near the shelves about 50 feet away. At first, I didn't even register anything weird. People stand around in libraries. That's what they're for. But he wasn't holding a book. He wasn't reading. Hell, he wasn't even moving. Just standing there, still as a statue, and his phone. It was pointed at me, not casually, not like he was scrolling and happened to be in my direction. Both hands up, gripping the phone like he was filming. Camera steady, aimed right at me. I froze. Did that dumb thing where you look behind you, hoping maybe there's someone else. But no. Just empty chairs and a dead printer humming in the corner. I stared at him. He didn't blink, didn't move. Then, like a switch flipped, he turned and disappeared behind the shelves. Exhaled hard, tried to laugh it off. Maybe he was live streaming something stupid. Maybe it was just some awkward coincidence. Weird people exist. Doesn't mean it's personal. I sat back down and reopened my laptop, forced myself to keep typing. I told myself to forget it. 30 minutes later, I looked up. He was back. Same spot, same phone. Still filming. I wasn't about to pretend it didn't happen. The second I stood up, he moved. Fast. Just turned the corner and disappeared behind the shelves again like he'd been waiting for me to react. I followed, heart thudding against my ribs, the blood in my ears louder than my footsteps. When I reached the spot, there was nothing. No one. Empty aisles and rows of silent books. Now I was rattled, properly freaked out. I grabbed my stuff, shoved it into my bag without bothering to organize anything, and headed for the exit. But I stopped near the front desk and flagged down a staff member. Young guy, probably a student himself. "Hey," I said, trying not to sound too panicked. There was a man upstairs, standing by the shelves. Looked like he was filming me, twice. His face shifted slightly, like he was deciding how seriously to take me. He nodded, polite, professional. "Okay, we'll keep an eye out." That was it. I could tell from his tone he didn't get it, or didn't believe me. That night, I went out to eat, some little Italian place with dim lighting and soft jazz playing over the speakers. Tried to shake it off. Told myself it was just a strange moment, some random creep. Done and gone. I was wrong. The next morning, I got up early again. Showered, dressed, grabbed my laptop, just like usual. I was halfway through the hotel lobby when I froze mid-step. He was there, sitting in one of the lounge chairs by the front entrance like he belonged there. Bald head, same dark sunglasses, same stone-still posture. He didn't look directly at me, but he turned his head. Just slightly, just enough to let me know he saw me. My pulse spiked. I kept walking, straight past the elevators, straight out the door, didn't even pause. But inside, I was spiraling. How the hell did he find me? Had he followed me from the library the day before, seen which hotel I went into? Or had he already known? I turned the corner fast, out of sight from the glass lobby doors, my hands shaking as I pulled out my phone. No plan, no idea who I'd even call. I waited. 1 minute. 2. Then through the reflection in a shop window I saw him stand. He didn't follow me right away. Just rose from the chair and drifted toward the entrance, glancing around like he was waiting for something. Or someone. That was enough. I walked fast, half-jogged honestly, ducking into side streets, slipping through clusters of pedestrians. I turned once, twice, checking behind me, my breath catching every time I thought I saw a bald head in the crowd. By the time I hit a major intersection, he was gone. I didn't see him again that day, or the next. When I checked out and boarded the train out of that city, I felt this strange, guilty relief, like I'd just barely escaped something. For a while, I believed that. I told myself it was over, just a blip. Then, months later, I was in another city for work. New place, new assignment, different coast even. I stayed late one night at a local library, quiet little spot, hardly anyone around. A few students dotted around the tables, headphones in, heads down. I was in the stacks, stretching my legs, walking slow past the shelves, and I saw him, at the far end of the aisle, partially obscured behind a bookcase, just standing. Same bald head, same sunglasses. But this time he wasn't holding a phone. He wasn't pretending to do anything. He was just watching. I froze. We stared at each other, me with my mouth dry and heart going wild in my chest, him completely still. Then he stepped forward, one slow step. That broke me. I turned and walked fast, almost ran straight to the front desk. The librarian looked up, startled. "Can I help you?" "There's a man in the aisles," I said, trying to steady my voice. "He's been following me across cities. I need you to call security." Something in my face must have convinced her because she didn't hesitate. She grabbed the phone. I turned to look back toward the shelves. He was gone. Security searched every inch of that library. Nothing, no one who matched my description. No camera footage. They showed me the feeds, me walking in, me browsing. No one behind me. No shadow at the end of the aisle. Nothing. To this day, I don't know who he was or what he wanted. But every time I'm in a library, I find myself glancing up just in case. And sometimes late at night I feel it, that certainty in the pit of my stomach. He's not done, and one day I'll see him again. I never saw the library as a dangerous place. It wasn't the kind of job that made your nerves hum. No late-night cash drops, no rowdy drunks, no one yelling about cold fries. Just books, whispers, and long, steady stretches of silence. I started working there when I was 19. It was supposed to be temporary, just something to pay rent while I figured out what the hell I was doing with my life. The place itself was small, tucked behind a row of half-empty storefronts on the quiet side of town. A 15-minute bus ride from my crappy apartment, 20 if traffic was bad. It was the kind of library where old ladies came to read mystery novels and college kids napped between classes. The biggest drama we ever had was someone trying to duck late fees. Most evenings I worked with Lisa. She was in her early 30s, wore loud scarves, and always had a podcast to recommend. At 6 on the dot, she'd grab her tote bag, wave goodnight, and leave me to close up. That was the routine. And it never bothered me. Not until that night. By 7:30, the place was dead quiet. Maybe 2 or 3 people still inside, scattered, in the back aisles. I was behind the desk flipping through an old Rolling Stone someone left behind. The only sounds were the soft flick of turning pages and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. That's when I noticed him. He came up to the desk from nowhere, like he'd materialized between one blink and the next. Mid-40s maybe. Brown jacket, jeans, nondescript as hell. If you asked me to describe his face now, I couldn't. He looked like someone you'd pass in a grocery store and forget 5 seconds later. Average to the point of eerie, no books in hand. That was the first thing that threw me. People only came to the desk if they needed help or were checking out. But he just stood there, expression pinched, eyes too sharp. "Some of your books are completely out of order," he said flatly. I blinked. Sorry?" "The back section," he said, firmer this time. "It's a mess. They're on the wrong shelves entirely." His tone was off. Like he wasn't just pointing it out. He was offended by it, personally affronted. My stomach tensed, just a little. Something about the way he stared at me, unblinking, too still. Like he hadn't moved a muscle since he arrived. "Okay," I said slowly, standing up. "You want to show me?" He nodded once and turned without another word. I followed him past the front desk, through the maze of shelves. The deeper we went, the heavier the silence felt. The lights overhead buzzed faintly, casting long shadows across the linoleum floor. He led me to the history section, nonfiction, tucked away in the farthest corner near the emergency exit. No cameras, no windows. I knew this area well. I'd shelved books here 100 times. He stopped in front of the last shelf. "Here," he said, gesturing vaguely. I turned to look. The shelves seemed fine at first glance. Maybe one or two. Titles slightly off-kilter, but nothing worth getting weird over. Then I heard it. A door creaked open behind me. The emergency exit. That door shouldn't have opened. I spun around, heart slamming into overdrive. Two men. One was the guy who'd led me into the back, expression unreadable. The other had just stepped in from the darkness outside. Before I could even breathe, they were on me. Hands, grabbing, pulling. Panic hit like an electric shock. Cold, fast, brutal. My brain couldn't keep up. 1 second I was standing in the quiet calm of the library. The next I was being dragged toward the open emergency door. "No, I managed, twisting hard, but they were stronger. Way stronger. No talking. No demands. Just brute force and cold silence. One arm locked around my torso, pinning me. The other guy clamped down on my wrist so tight it burned. The door was wide, open behind me. I felt the sting of night air on my skin. If they got me through that door, I didn't even let the thought finish. I kicked back, caught one of them in the shin. He grunted but didn't loosen his grip. I thrashed harder, arms flailing, heart battering against my ribs. Then, just for a second, I managed to let out a yell, sharp and wild, before a rough hand slammed over my mouth, smothering the sound. What the hell was happening? Who were they? Why me? Was this a robbery? A kidnapping? Worse? No one knew I was back here. The library was practically deserted. My stomach turned. I was alone. They dragged me another foot toward the exit. Then, I saw it. A fire alarm. Red handle, barely 5 feet away. I lunged for it, stretching every inch of my body, fingers clawing at the air. One of them caught on and yanked me back, but too late. My fingers hooked the handle, and I yanked. The alarm screamed to life. A piercing, bone-shaking shriek ripped through the library. Everything froze, just for a second. Then chaos. The man gripping my torso recoiled instantly, like the sound had burned him. He spun toward the blaring noise, panic written all over his face. The other's grip faltered, just for a beat. But it was enough. I tore free, stumbling back, breath ragged, blood roaring in my ears. They locked eyes, silent, like they were deciding something without words, then bolted. Out the emergency exit. Gone. I stood there frozen, legs like water, watching the door swing on its hinges. It didn't even latch properly. Hands shaking, I lunged and slammed it shut, slapping at the metal until I heard the click of the lock catching. Only then did I run straight to the front desk, grabbing the phone with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. The cops got there fast. I told them everything, at least what I could tell. My memory was full of static. The adrenaline had blurred their faces, smeared the details. Just shapes, movements, a sick feeling in my gut. We checked the cameras. There weren't many in that part of the library, just one angle that caught a glimpse of the man walking me into the stacks. The emergency exit, no coverage, nothing but darkness. They took my statement, said they'd investigate. I never heard back, and I never saw those men again. I kept the job. I needed the money, but I never closed a loan after that. Lisa and I made sure of it, and that little knot of unease in my gut, I don't ignore it anymore. Not ever. I've never really liked libraries. They've always made my skin crawl, not in a loud, obvious way, but in this quiet, creeping sense, like someone's just barely out of view, watching. Maybe it's the way silence swells in those big, empty spaces, making every cough or shuffle feel 10 times louder. Still, that night, I didn't have a choice. I had a research paper breathing down my neck. And my apartment? Forget it. Between my phone lighting up every few minutes, My roommate's chaotic playlists, and the siren call of my bed whispering just lie down for 5 minutes, I was getting nowhere fast. The university library was jam-packed, midterms panic season, so I went with Plan B, the public library across town. I'd been there once or twice. Small place, 2 floors, decent lighting, enough empty tables, and best of all, it stayed open late. 20-minute drive wasn't ideal, but I needed peace and quiet, and this place delivered. By the time I pulled into the lot, the sky had dipped into that deep, velvet blue that tells you night's fully arrived. The parking lot was mostly deserted, just a handful of lonely cars scattered under dim orange streetlights. I killed the engine and sat there a second, staring at the building. A few windows glowed softly, casting warm yellow blocks of light onto the pavement. It looked still, almost too still. With a long sigh, I slung my bag over my shoulder, locked the car, and headed inside. The smell hit me right away. Old books, dust, and that lingering trace of stale coffee. A scent I didn't hate, actually. The air was cool, and the silence? Heavy. Not peaceful, not really. More like the kind that presses against your ears. One librarian sat behind the front desk, gray hair in a loose bun, glasses barely hanging onto her nose. She glanced up when I walked in. No smile, no words, then looked right back down at her screen. I took the stairs to the second floor. They groaned under each step. Up here, the open feel of the ground level disappeared. Tall shelves formed, tight corridors, little pathways that felt like they belonged underground, not in a public building. Most of the tables were empty. One woman sat a few rows over, nose buried deep in a thick paperback. But other than that, nothing. Perfect. Picked a table wedged between 2 towering shelves, a little alcove tucked just out of sight. My own quiet hideaway. I dumped my bag, pulled out my laptop, opened my notes, and got to work. Once I got into the flow, everything else melted away. My fingers danced across the keys. Pages rustled, the laptop hummed, and my brain locked onto the task like a dog with a bone. Hours blurred together. I didn't look up, didn't stretch, didn't breathe really, just zoned in. And that was my mistake. It must have been close to 3 hours later when I finally leaned back, my spine stiff, eyes gritty from staring. Too long. I cracked my neck, rubbed my temples, and that's when I saw it. An envelope. Cream-colored, plain, just sitting there at the edge of the table, perfectly centered. I blinked, slow. My brain, groggy from too much screen time, tried to catch up. That envelope hadn't been there before. I knew it hadn't. I would have seen it. A chill crawled down my spine, cold and deliberate. How the hell did it get there? I reached for the envelope slowly, fingertips grazing the smooth paper. It wasn't sealed, just folded neatly. My eyes flicked up, scanning the room. The woman from earlier was still at her table, quietly turning a page. Other than her, the floor was empty. Still. Too still. Swallowing hard, I slid the photo out. It was me. I stared at it, heart thudding against my ribs. The picture had been taken earlier that night. Same hoodie, same posture, hunched over my laptop. The faint blue glow of the screen lit up my face. But it wasn't the image itself that made my skin crawl. It was the angle. It had been taken from behind a shelf, through one of the narrow gaps. Someone had been watching me, right then. I turned the photo over, half expecting something scrawled on the back. A message, a name, anything. Blank, just smooth, white nothing. I looked over my shoulder, eyes flicking between the towering shelves. No movement, no sound. But I could feel it. Something colder settling deep in my chest. Someone had been there, close, and I hadn't even noticed. I stood, my chair scraping gently against the floor, the sound too loud in the dead air. I crossed to the woman sitting a few tables over, trying to keep my voice calm. "Hey, sorry to bother you," I said, keeping my tone light. "Did you happen to see anyone walk by my table?" She looked up, blinked like she was surfacing from deep water. No, I don't think so. She adjusted her glasses, brow furrowing. You sure? No one at all? My voice cracked slightly. I tried to rein it in. I mean, she said, glancing around. I've been pretty into this book, but I don't think so. Why? I forced a smile. It's nothing. Don't worry about it. She watched me as I turned, then called after me. Did something happen? I paused, the envelope suddenly heavy in my hand. Nah, just thought I dropped something. I lied. Back at my table, I shoved everything into my bag. Laptop, notes, books. I tucked the photo back into the envelope, slipping it between the pages of a notebook like I didn't want it to touch anything else. The air felt different now, denser, like it was pushing back against me. I needed to get out. Outside. I exhaled, the cold night air biting my face. The parking lot was nearly empty now, more so than before. My footsteps echoed as I made my way toward the car. Then I saw it. A truck parked far off at the edge of the lot. It hadn't been there earlier, backed into the spot facing the building. Headlights off, driver's side window down. And someone was inside. A man. His face was buried in shadows, unreadable, but what I could see was the camera. He was holding it up to his face, staring at me through the lens, and then, click. My breath caught. I froze. He didn't move at first, just lowered the camera casually, like this was routine. Then, without missing a beat, he tossed it onto the passenger seat, started the engine, and pulled away. No screeching tires, no rush, just a smooth, practiced departure. I didn't get a look at the plates, didn't see his face, nothing, just the shape of him. The click of the camera, the way he vanished into the night like he'd done it 100 times before. I stood there gripping my bag, heart pounding in my ears. I didn't know him, didn't recognize the truck, didn't know why he'd been taking pictures of me. But I knew one thing. He'd been close. He'd watched me, left me that photo, and he wanted me to find it. I drove home with my eyes glued to the rearview mirror, paranoia buzzing under my skin like electricity. Every turn, every headlight behind. Me, I second-guessed it all. When I finally pulled into my apartment lot, I locked the door behind me and yanked the blinds shut. Then I just stood there, staring at the envelope in my hand. Someone had watched me for hours, left me a photograph like a calling card. Followed me out. Took another shot just to make sure I knew. I never went back to that library, and to this day, I don't know who he was, or if he ever really stopped watching.